The arrival of the outsider. The sky above Veros 9 was a dull shade of amber, streaked with the constant glow of the twin suns. The colony had been built on hard, unfamiliar soil. Humans had arrived here over a decade ago, carving out a life in the midst of a world that never quite felt like home. The air was dense, charged with a quiet tension that never faded. Leon Vance, a young engineer, spent most of his days fixing things, generators, water purifiers, and the endless stream of equipment that barely kept the colony running. Unlike the others, he never truly feared the planet. He respected it, listened to the wind, and sometimes wondered if it whispered secrets no one else could hear. That evening, as Leon was repairing an old power relay near the perimeter fence, he heard it, the sound of something moving beyond the boundary. Not the sharp chittering of the native wildlife, not the low hum of colony drones. It was something else. Something breathing. He turned. A figure stood just beyond the metal barricades. At first, he thought it was just a trick of the dimming light. But no, the figure was real, standing between the massive rock formations that lined the outer edges of the colony. A woman. Not human. She was tall, her frame slender but strong, covered in armor-like fabric that shimmered subtly. Her skin was a deep shade of violet, almost blending into the shadows. Glowing golden eyes locked onto his. Not hostile, but wary. Leon's breath caught in his throat. The colony had always been wary of outsiders. Any unknown alien was labeled a threat before anyone even bothered to understand them. Fear was a way of life on Veros 9, and anything different was treated as an enemy. But Leon didn't move. He watched as the alien woman clutched her side. A faint trace of dark, silvery liquid trailed down her arm. She was injured. The rational side of his mind screamed at him to report it. Call security. Do what everyone else in the colony would do. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped forward. "You're hurt," he said, his voice calm. She flinched, taking a step back. Her eyes flicked toward the colony walls, then back to him, as if assessing whether he was a bigger threat than whatever she was running from. Leon slowly raised his hands, showing he had no weapon. "I won't hurt you," he said. "But if someone else finds you first." The alien woman hesitated. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, she collapsed to her knees. Leon acted on instinct. He ran to her side, catching her before she hit the rocky ground. Her breathing was shallow, but steady. He knew that if he took her into the colony, she'd be locked up or worse. But if he left her out here, she wouldn't survive the night. He made his decision. Lifting her carefully, Leon carried the mysterious woman through the hidden pathways behind the outer structures, avoiding the watchtowers. His heart pounded. If anyone saw him, he'd have a lot to answer for. By the time he reached his small maintenance quarters on the far side of the colony, the suns had nearly set. He placed her gently on the old cot, then grabbed a medical kit. As he cleaned the wound on her arm, she stirred. Her golden eyes opened, staring at him with an intensity that made his breath hitch. She didn't speak, but she didn't resist either. Instead, for the first time, she trusted him. Whispers of danger. A heavy silence filled the small maintenance quarters. The dim glow of an old lantern flickered against the walls as Leon Vance carefully wrapped a bandage around the alien woman's arm. Her golden eyes followed his every movement, but she didn't flinch. She was still weak, but there was something in her gaze, calculated, observant. Leon had a million questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she injured? But he knew better than to overwhelm her. For now, he needed to keep her hidden. Outside, the colony continued its evening routine, workers returning from shifts, the security patrol making its rounds, and the ever-present buzz of the watchtowers scanning the perimeter for threats. If they found her, there would be no mercy. Leon took a slow breath and spoke softly. I need to know if you understand me. She blinked, then tilted her head slightly. Can you speak? He tried again. The alien woman parted her lips, but no words came, only a faint exhale, as if she were testing her own voice. She furrowed her brow, then clenched her jaw. Leon sighed. I guess that's a no. He reached for a notepad and sketched a rough outline of the colony's perimeter, then tapped it. Where did you come from? He asked. She studied the drawing for a long moment, then slowly lifted a finger. Instead of pointing to any location on the map, she traced a line beyond the colony's known borders, an area that had never been explored. Leon frowned. No one had ever ventured that far. Before he could ask more, a sharp beeping sound filled the room. The colony-wide alert. Leon tensed and quickly shut off the lantern. The woman's golden eyes remained visible in the darkness, glowing faintly as he moved toward the window. Outside, a security officer's voice echoed over the loudspeakers. Attention all personnel. An unidentified entity was detected near the southern perimeter. Report any suspicious activity immediately. Leon felt his stomach tighten. They knew. He turned back to the alien woman. She was sitting up now, her posture tense, her fingers gripping the edge of the cot. Even without words, he understood, she wanted to run. No, he whispered. They'll find you. He grabbed his jacket and tossed it over her shoulders, then motioned for her to stay hidden. I'll handle this. Without waiting for a response, he stepped outside and shut the door behind him. The growing suspicion. The colony streets were unusually crowded for this hour. Groups of workers whispered amongst themselves while security officers moved through the area, scanning every corner. Leon forced himself to stay calm as Captain Darren Holt, the head of security, approached. Vance, Holt called, narrowing his eyes. You were on the south side earlier today. Did you see anything unusual? Leon shook his head casually. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just fixing the power relay. Holt studied him for a long moment. He was a man who thrived on suspicion, always looking for someone to blame. Holt muttered. Some of the motion sensors were tripped near the perimeter. If you hear or see anything, report it immediately. Leon gave a short nod. Of course. Holt lingered for another few seconds before moving on. Leon exhaled slowly. That was too close. As he turned to head back to his quarters, he spotted shadows of the past. Leon's boots barely made a sound as he stepped back into his quarters, securing the door behind him. His pulse was still racing from the encounter with Captain Holt. The alien woman, whom he had begun calling Sira in his mind, hadn't moved. She was watching him carefully, golden eyes flickering in the dim light. Despite her weakened state, she radiated an unshakable presence, like a soldier assessing every detail of a battlefield. Leon took a slow breath, rubbing a hand over his face. They're looking for you. Sira didn't react. Instead, she reached for the jacket draped over her shoulders and pulled it closer. He knelt beside her. If they find you, they'll take you away. You understand that, don't you? This time, she gave a small nod. Leon hesitated, then grabbed his notepad again. He pointed to the line she had drawn beyond the colony's borders. What's out there? He asked. Sira looked at the notepad, then at him. After a long pause, she lifted her fingers to the surface of the table and slowly traced an unfamiliar shape. It looked almost like a sigil, a symbol of some kind. Leon frowned. He had never seen it before, but something about it felt unsettling. Is that where you came from? She nodded again. Leon's mind raced. The colony had been here for years, and no one had ever encountered intelligent life beyond their own people. There were rumors, of course, old legends about things lurking beyond the perimeter, but nothing concrete. Until now. Who was she? Why was she feared? And what did she want from him? Before he could ask more, Syrah suddenly tensed. Her gaze snapped toward the door. Leon followed her eyes, and that's when he heard it, footsteps. A dangerous encounter. A heavy knock shattered the silence. Leon's heart pounded as he exchanged a glance with Syrah. She pressed herself against the shadows, body coiled like she was ready to spring into action. Stay hidden, he mouthed, then moved to the door. Taking a deep breath, he pulled it open. Captain Holt stood there, arms crossed over his chest, flanked by 2 security officers. His dark eyes scanned the room behind Leon. Vance, Holt said slowly, mind if we take a look inside? Leon forced a casual shrug. Something wrong? We got reports of movement in this sector. Might be a stray animal, might be something else. Just doing our job. Leon knew what that meant. They were searching for her. Well, if you're looking for a stray animal, I doubt it's in here, Leon said, stepping aside just enough to block their view of the darkened corner where Syrah was hiding. Holt wasn't convinced. He took a step forward, his boots heavy against the floor. His eyes flicked across the room. Leon swallowed hard. If they found her, there was no telling what would happen. Holt took another step, then paused. Leon followed his gaze, and felt the air leave his lungs. The notepad. It was still on the table. And the symbol Syrah had drawn was right there, in plain sight. Holt narrowed his eyes. What's this? Leon forced a chuckle, stepping in front of it. Just some doodling. Long shifts, you know how it is. Holt stared at him for a long moment. The tension in the room was suffocating. Finally, the captain exhaled. Right. Well, if you see anything, you let me know. Leon nodded, feigning nonchalance. The security team turned and left. Leon shut the door and let out a shaky breath. When he turned, Syrah was already standing. Her golden eyes were locked on his. We can't stay here, Leon murmured. We need to leave. Now. Syrah didn't hesitate. She gave one firm nod. Outside, the colony was still searching for her. And beyond the perimeter, something was waiting. Leon just didn't know if it was a friend, or an even greater danger. The path beyond the colony. The night air was thick with tension as Leon and Syrah moved through the dimly lit back alleys of the colony. The settlement's floodlights swept across the perimeter, casting long shadows over the steel and concrete buildings. The security patrols were still on high alert, searching for the mysterious intruder, searching for her. Leon's mind raced. He had never done anything like this before, harboring a fugitive, sneaking past security, leaving the colony's safe zones. If they were caught, he would be thrown into confinement, or worse. But when he looked at Syrah, he knew there was no turning back. She had trusted only him. Now, it was his turn to prove that trust wasn't misplaced. Escaping the colony. They kept to the shadows, moving quickly but cautiously. The colony's outer walls loomed in the distance, massive steel barriers meant to keep dangers out. But right now, they felt more like a prison. We need to get through the gate, Leon whispered, glancing toward the security checkpoint. 2 guards stood watch, their rifles slung across their shoulders. Beyond them, the vast wilderness stretched into the unknown. Syrah tapped his arm. When he turned, she motioned for him to follow her along the side of a storage building. At first, Leon wasn't sure where she was leading him, until he saw it. An old maintenance tunnel, barely visible beneath a stack of unused crates. It was small, rusted, and probably hadn't been used in years. Leon turned to Syrah. You knew about this? She gave a short nod. He didn't have time to ask how. They needed to move. Leon pushed aside the crates, revealing a narrow passage barely wide enough for them to crawl through. He hesitated for only a second before dropping to his knees and sliding in. Syrah followed close behind, her movements eerily silent. The tunnel was damp and smelled of rust, but it led them straight beneath the colony's outer wall. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into the open night. They were free. But they weren't safe. A world unknown. Beyond the colony, the land stretched wide and barren. Jagged rock formations jutted from the ground, and the air carried a strange, electric energy. It was eerily quiet, too quiet. Leon turned to Syrah. "Where now?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she started walking. Leon hesitated but followed. Hours passed. They moved through rocky terrain, past dry riverbeds and abandoned outposts from the first settlers. Leon had never ventured this far before. Few people had. Eventually, they reached a ridge overlooking a deep canyon. The sight took Leon's breath away. At the canyon's heart, hidden from the colony's view, was a structure. It was massive, ancient-looking, made of dark stone that shimmered under the moonlight. Strange symbols, similar to the one Syrah had drawn earlier, were etched into its surface. Leon exhaled slowly. "What is this place?" Syrah turned to him. Her golden eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. "Home." Leon's stomach tightened. "Home?" Before he could ask more, a distant sound cut through the silence. A deep, low hum. Syrah's posture stiffened. Leon turned just in time to see figures emerging from the canyon. They weren't human. And they were coming straight for them. The truth unveiled. Leon's heart pounded as he watched the figures approach. They moved with eerie grace, their silhouettes outlined by the pale moonlight. Their forms were unlike anything he had ever seen before, tall, armored, and bearing the same golden eyes as Syrah. For a brief moment, he considered running. But then, he glanced at Syrah. She stood still, watching them without fear. They weren't enemies. Leon swallowed his panic and forced himself to stay by her side. A long-awaited return. As the figures drew closer, the leader of the group stepped forward. He was taller than the others, his presence commanding. Unlike Syrah's tattered cloak, his armor gleamed under the night sky, adorned with markings that pulsed with faint light. "Syrah?" The leader's voice was deep, filled with an emotion Leon couldn't quite place. Syrah didn't move. She simply nodded. The leader studied her for a moment before speaking again, this time in a language Leon didn't understand. Syrah responded in kind, her voice steady but laced with something, relief, perhaps? Leon shifted uncomfortably. He had spent so much time helping her escape, risking everything, but now, he felt like an outsider. Like he didn't belong here. The leader finally turned his gaze to Leon. "You brought her back," he said, this time in Leon's language. Leon hesitated, unsure of what to say. I didn't know where we were going. I just wanted to help." The leader nodded, his expression unreadable. "You did more than that. You fulfilled a prophecy." Leon blinked. "Prophecy?" Syrah finally spoke. "They thought I was lost. But you brought me home." Leon's stomach twisted. There was something more to this, something he hadn't been told. The Guardian's purpose. They led him into the canyon, toward the massive ancient structure. Up close, it was even more awe-inspiring. The stone pulsed with a quiet energy, and the symbols etched into its surface glowed faintly at their approach. Leon couldn't help but stare. "What is this place?" Syrah looked at him. "The sanctuary. The last stronghold of my people." Leon frowned. "I thought your people were feared. Why hide?" The leader answered this time. Because your colony believes we are monsters. They do not know the truth. Leon hesitated. He had spent his whole life in the colony, hearing stories about the dangers beyond the walls. Creatures that lurked in the wilderness, waiting to strike. But what if it had all been a lie? Sira continued. We are not the threat, Leon. We are the guardians. Leon's breath caught. Guardians? Of what? Sira stepped forward, pressing her hand against the stone. The symbols flared brighter, and the ground beneath them trembled. Then, the doors of the sanctuary began to open. Beyond them lay a vast chamber, filled with technology far beyond anything Leon had seen. Floating orbs of light illuminated intricate machinery, and at the room's center stood a massive crystal pulsing with energy. Leon took a step back. What is this? Sira turned to face him. The heart of this planet. The source of all life here. Leon's mind reeled. The colony had no idea. The choice. The leader spoke again. We have watched your people for generations, hoping for peace. But they fear what they do not understand. They have hunted us, forcing us into hiding. Yet, you are different. Leon swallowed. He had spent his whole life thinking the colony was the only truth. But now, standing here, seeing the reality for himself. Everything had changed. Sira stepped closer. You saw the truth when no one else did. You helped me when the world turned its back. You don't have to go back, Leon. You can stay. Help us. Leon's chest tightened. Stay? The colony would never understand what he had seen. If he returned, he would be branded a traitor. But if he stayed, he would be choosing a future he didn't fully understand. Yet, when he looked at Sira, the woman who had trusted only him, when no one else would, he knew his choice. He took a deep breath. I'm staying. A new beginning. The leader nodded approvingly. Sira smiled. And as the doors of the sanctuary sealed shut behind them, Leon knew his life had changed forever. Not as a colonist. Not as an outsider. But as a guardian of the truth. The return of shadows. Leon had made his choice. He had chosen to stay with Sira and her people, to embrace a truth hidden from the colony for generations. Yet, as the sanctuary doors closed behind him, a chilling thought settled in his mind: would the colony simply let him go? Whispers of war. Days passed within the sanctuary, and Leon quickly learned that Sira's people were far more advanced than the colony had ever imagined. Their knowledge of the planet, its energy, and its secrets stretched beyond anything he had been taught. Yet, despite their wisdom, they were afraid. Not of the colony itself, but of what was coming. It started with distant tremors. Then, an eerie silence spread across the wilderness. Something was wrong. One evening, as Leon trained with Sira in the open courtyard, the sky darkened unnaturally. A pulse of energy rippled through the air, causing the sanctuary walls to hum. The leader, Varian, rushed toward them, his golden eyes filled with urgency. They have found us. Leon's stomach dropped. The colony? Varian shook his head. No, something much worse. The forgotten enemy. Sira and Leon followed Varian to the heart of the sanctuary, where the glowing crystal pulsed erratically. Several elders stood around it, their faces grim. One of them, an aged woman named Neris, turned to Leon. Your arrival triggered something, outsider. Something we feared would awaken. Leon frowned. What do you mean? Sira stepped forward. Long before your colony came, we were not alone. There was another force here. A darkness that nearly consumed this world. Leon's throat tightened. And you think it's coming back? Varian's expression darkened. We don't think. We know. The storm arrives. That night, the first attack came. It started with an unnatural wind, howling through the valley. Then, shadows began to move, not creatures, but living darkness, twisting and shifting as if searching for something. The sanctuary's defenses activated, sending waves of energy through the air, but the shadows absorbed it. Leon and Syrah stood at the outer walls, weapons drawn. Then, a deep voice echoed through the canyon. You cannot hide forever. Leon's blood turned cold. A figure emerged from the darkness, towering, armored in blackened metal, with eyes that burned like dying stars. Varian whispered one word. The Revenant. A battle for the future. The Revenant raised a gauntlet hand, and the shadows lunged. The sanctuary erupted into chaos, defenders clashing with the darkness, energy blasts cutting through the night. Leon fought beside Syrah, his mind racing. The colony had feared the wrong enemy. This was the true threat. As the battle raged, the Revenant's gaze locked onto Leon. You do not belong here, it growled. Leon tightened his grip on his weapon. Try and make me leave. The Revenant smiled. And then, everything turned to fire.